So we are reviewing yesterday, and I gave you 2 points here. X is 3 and X is 5. Those dots are the x-intercepts of your parabola. And if the parabola is not stretched and it's not flipped, then you should be able to tell me, or not reflected officially, you should be able to tell me what the vertex is, what the vertex form of the equation is, what the factored form of the equation is, what the general form of the equation is, what the axis of symmetry is, all of those things. And I'm going to pause for a second while you try to tell me everything. And if you're like, what did you want again? Just draw the parabola in when you know where it is, and that'll answer a couple of the questions. But give me all 3 forms of the equations. I'm going to give you a minute to get this done. Did you guys get 4, -1 as the vertex? So then here's everything. Y equals parentheses x minus 3 and x minus 5. What form is that? That's not vertex form. Factored form. All right, next I'm going to give vertex form. Y equals x minus 4 quantity squared. That's how you officially say that, by the way. You don't say parentheses x minus 4 parentheses squared. It's called the quantity x minus 4 squared. Then minus 1. Now I double checked myself to make sure I didn't screw up the inside, because that does happen from time to time. But I think I got it. Raise your hand if you got the same thing. Good. Now, what are the x-intercepts? Well, didn't you give them to us? Yeah, but they're going to ask you to write them in a special way. The x-intercepts were at 3 and 5. Can't you just say 3 and 5? No. 3, 0, because an x-intercept has y equal to 0, and 5, 0. Yes, it's picky, but math rewards careful people. Okay, now I need to multiply one of these out. And pro tip, that one's easier to multiply the out than the other one is. They would give you the same thing if you do it right. Multiply it out, it's x squared minus 8x plus 15. Who had that before I said it? Nice. All right. Does that make sense so far? All right. So that is yesterday's stuff. And, oh, one more thing. That dotted line that runs down the middle, what's its name? Axis of symmetry. And if you just said it was 4, you were close, but you get it wrong. Because I told you, don't ever give a single number answer. X equals 4 is the axis of symmetry. Notice the x-intercepts too. Look, I didn't give them as a single number. I gave them as a point. A single number, when you're talking about a 2-dimensional graph, doesn't tell you anything. All right. Now we got to factor, and I'm going to start with the easiest kind of factoring of them all. 25. Can you factor it? I can. Can you? Factoring, in case you don't know this, factoring just means make it into a multiply problem. 25 times 1 would be factored, actually. It wouldn't be a super useful factoring. Usually you split it up into other numbers besides itself. So then 5 times 5, that is factored. That is the easiest kind of factoring. When would you ever do that? I'll show you. Let's say you had 24 over 6 and the kid is convinced that the answer is 8, and you're like, no, 6 times 4 over 6. That you could probably get them to agree that that's true. And then you could cancel those out, and the answer is 4. See, I factored it, and it helped to factor it. So if you can factor it, you should. All right, here's the next easiest kind of factoring. And I'm amazed at how many kids are like, I can't factor that. Yes, you can factor that. You're not thinking of factoring right if you think you can't factor that. Factoring means turn it into a multiply problem. Do you agree they both have a 2 in it? Comes out to the front. And the rest of it is x plus 2. That's factored. And I know some of you think the only kind of factoring is this next kind, where you have 2 sets of parentheses. This is a kind of factoring, but it's not the only kind of factoring. Now, I want to tell you, in case you have like not been taught this before, the easy way to factor. Well, first of all, x and x, that's, I hope, pretty obvious, because that'll make the x squared. But a lot of people make the mistake of now trying to figure out what numbers to use. Don't do that. Figure out whether you should use pluses or minuses or one of each. Do you agree that I have negatives all over the place in the answer? Then I have to have at least one negative, and you can use logic to figure out if it's one negative or two negatives. Think about two negatives for a second. Why would that not work? It would multiply to a positive, and I'm supposed to get a negative at the end. So therefore, it's 1 plus and 1 minus. Get those signs figured out first. It helps so much, I'm telling you. If you've never done it this way, it's the way. A little Mandalorian reference there. Okay, so now I have a 5 and a 1. I get to pick where I put them. I could either put the 5 here and the 1 the other place, and I think that's what it is. Because I thought ahead of time, how could I make a negative 4x come out when I do this times this, and this times this? I call that the smiley face of factoring. The inside and the outside. In FOIL, what we're doing here is the outside part and the inside part, and they have to make a total of negative 4x. Now, I know some of you were taught this in the middle school. You were told the two numbers are going to multiply to this, and they're going to add to that. And that is a terrible rule. Now, I know some of you are like, but this worked for me every time. It's because all your problems are easy. When you get to hard problems, they won't multiply to this and add to that. Trust me, that rule works only on easy problems. Okay? So, it's a rule that worked great when you were at the middle school and you never had the hard problem. But now you're in Algebra 2 and Honors Algebra 2, and they're going to be hard problems, and it won't multiply to this and add to that anymore. I'll prove it by the end of the hour, but trust me, only on easy problems will that happen. Okay. So, a lot of kids ask, I typed this in and it said it was wrong. What would be wrong about this? It doesn't have the y equals. If you are asked for an equation, you have to have an equals sign. And you need to have something on both sides of the equal sign. So, if you don't have a y equals, you didn't have an equation. Do you guys know what it's called if you don't have the equals y? It starts with an E. It's not an equation, it's a expression. Very good. So if they asked you for an expression, you could type this. But if they ask you for an equation, it has to have an equal sign, and it has to have something on both sides of the equal sign. So you put y equals. All right. Next thing is they're going to ask for the x-intercepts. And they are 5 and negative 1, and I just got it marked wrong. Why? Only have one number. You can't do that. Now, if it's an x-intercept, would you agree that I've said this sentence a million times? The x-intercept is where y is 0. So use that. See? The x-intercept is where y is 0. That's how you can type it in without just typing one number. Just one number? Who knows where that is on the graph? If I just say 6, where is it? You don't know. So you have to have two numbers. So that's the answers for this. Those are the x-intercepts. I would have also accepted if you said x equals 5, but the problem with that is that's how you write an axis of symmetry. X equals 5 would be an axis of symmetry, not the answer. Okay, so the answers to these are x-intercepts, so write them this way. A lot of these things are picky, but math rewards careful people. Do you get if you're doing a computer program, if you put a decimal in one spot, one wrong decimal in a whole computer program, it just won't work. It is extremely picky. One little tiny, like character wrong, the whole program won't work. Okay, math is like that. You can't afford to just have an extra thing or not know how to write it. So my best tip on typing in your Schoology quiz answers, if you're tempted to just type a number, it's wrong. You got to figure out, it might be like, for instance, comma 0. All right, so we were factoring, and I gave you a bunch of easy ones, and then last hour, only like 3 people knew this. Does anybody in here know how to factor this kind? Literally only 3 people last hour. It's like maybe we got one. Anybody else think they got this? Maybe. I'll give you a minute. Take a second. All right, show your answer to somebody so that at least we have accountability. If you don't know, it's okay. Just because they're showing you an answer doesn't mean it's right. All right, who had x plus 5 and x minus 5? Woo! Why in the heck do we have 12 people in here this hour and literally only 3 last hour? That's fantastic. Maybe I gave you more time. I don't know. But that's awesome. All right, for those of you that didn't get it before, do you get how easy that was? It was just the square root of the 25 and an x plus and an x minus. If you're not sure why it worked, it's because I can multiply it out. Watch, x times x squared. Outside and the inside cancel. And 5 times negative 5 makes negative 25. All right. I hope then that everybody gets this right. What's x squared minus 144? The only problem would be if you didn't know that 12 times 12 is 144. But now I told you that, so. There's one on the homework for today that's really cruel. Everybody thought 51 was prime, but it's not. So I'll tell you in a second. Like this, if you don't know 12 times 12, you'd never get it, but I just said that, so you should have been able to go x plus 12 and x minus 12. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Cool. Then 51. Why would you ever need to know that 51 has factors? What if it was in something like this? Write that one down. Now the first thing you look for is there anything I could factor out of everything? Like if they were all even numbers, like if there was a 2 in the front, you could factor out a 2 maybe, except the 51 isn't even. So you look and see if there's a GCF. There isn't. Then you go on to make 2 parentheses, and you struggle through it. X. Anybody know what the factors of 51 are? Yes?
3 and 17.
Very good. 3 times 17. So then I'm going to put, wait, I shouldn't really start with the numbers though. Is it going to be a plus and a plus? Just tell me if that's possible. That is not possible. Tell me if it could be a minus and a minus.
Yes.
Yes, it could be possible because a negative times a negative would make a positive 51. Cool. And then it'd be handy to know that 17 times 3 makes 51. So 17, 3, I think that worked, didn't it? Well, if you're like, I'm not sure it works, then you don't really know that you multiply them out. X times x is x squared. Outside and inside will be the key part. Did that part make negative 20? It did. And I know some of you are like, but it's still doing it, Mr. Server. When you go this times this, you get this. They multiply to that. And look, they add to negative 20. Yeah, because this is still an easy one. Here's an example of one that we start doing later. This is actually pre-teaching. You don't have to be able to do this one today, but I'm trying to show you that that rule sucks because it only works sometimes. And if you have a rule that only works sometimes, then you gotta like decide whether or not you can use it or not. This one, it won't work. If you do it multiplies to this and it adds to that, that won't work. And there won't be anybody there standing with you on the test to go, by the way, that won't work. So if you keep thinking, oh yeah, it multiplies to this and it adds to that, it won't work. Rohan, can you tell me how you think we would start this problem? Hint, it's not just x and x. Like this wouldn't work. Close. There's a 2 right there. You get the 2x times x would make 2x squared. Now, I always told you to do the signs next. if you just follow my rules, factoring's so much easier. What signs does it have to be? It has to be a plus and a plus. That's the only way that can possibly be, because they're all positives in the problem, so it must be plus and plus. And last but not least, it will always multiply to this, but it won't always add to this. That's a bad rule. So what's the answer? 1 and 1. How could you prove it if the kid said, no, it doesn't work? How could you prove it works? Let's find out. What's 2x times x? 2x squared. What's the outside and the inside, which is like where all the action happens? 2x and 1x makes 3x. Oh, it worked. And did positive 1 and positive 1 multiply to 1 and add to 3? No, it didn't. See? So that rule only works on easy problems. And we very quickly get done with the easy problems. And because you're in honors. So stop thinking about multiplies to this and adds to that, because it won't add to that. Not always. All right. And if I type this in as the equation, I'd get it wrong, because what is it missing? Y equals. And if they wanted the answer, that's different. The answer is, I could say this, and I could say, can you do this in your head? X equals negative. If you can't do that in your head, you go like this. 2x plus 1 wants to equal 0. 2x would be equal to negative 1. Can you do it from there? Can't seriously solve that? Come on. Negative a half. Good. There's my two answers. Except if they want x-intercepts, wouldn't you have to say that y was 0? So if they wanted x-intercepts, you'd go like this. X-intercepts have y equal to 0. It'll say it in the directions. You won't have to be psychic. But if you just type a single number, you'd for sure be wrong. If they asked for the solution, you could have typed it this way, because that's not just a single number. But if they ask for an x-intercept, then they're telling you y is 0. And you're supposed to type it that way for x-intercepts. So I think on the quiz they ask for these. So watch out. Put them in parentheses. All right. Now from here, all it is all these different possible combinations of factoring. But here's the nastiest of them all. This isn't that hard. You can absolutely do it, but please copy this down. Y equals 2x squared plus 8x minus 10. So tons of kids will just right away make this and they get it wrong. Don't do that. Did you figure out what you should do? Usually there's a couple kids that see it. Come on, volunteer. What should you do? Yes? Yes, there's a 2 that's going to factor out of this thing. And don't try to do all the parentheses at once. Just factor out the 2. How would you know that? Because you're going to get stuck. And then you're going to be like, what's wrong? Oh, I can factor out a 2. Jaden Johns, once I factored out that 2, what would be left? Here, here, and here.
X squared plus 8x plus 5. Yeah, x squared plus 4x plus 5.
Nice. Isaac, do you think it's possible we might be able to factor it again?
Yeah.
I agree. Start with an x and x, and then I always say to do the signs. Can you please tell me what signs there has to be?
Plus and a minus.
Yes, because this number is negative, it has to be one positive and one negative. It's just the only way it can work. Nora, what multiplies to 5?
6.
6 multiplies to 5?
No, no. Never mind. It's already. I don't really know.
5 times 1. It's the weird one. This one, it is multiplying, isn't it? 5 times 1. So yeah, you got to use 5 and 1. And then you could either put it here, 5, and this one be 1, or reverse it, but I checked in my head already. And this one gave me a total of 5x minus 1x is 4x. It worked. And if you type that, you get it wrong. Savage, what's wrong with this problem? Why is this wrong?
Why is this wrong?
Yes, this is wrong. Only because it doesn't say y equals. Kids do it all the time on the test. I'm telling you. It's not an equation until it has a y equals at the beginning. And then if they want the solution, this is not the solution. The solution would be -5 and 1. And if you ever just find yourself typing in -5, you're wrong. I guarantee it, you're wrong. You gotta like say it some other way. So if they want the x-intercept, which is mostly what they ask for today, the x-intercept has y equal to 0. That's how you'd type it. Never type in a single number. All right, now it's just a matter of can you factor. So let's actually get into the Schoology quiz. You'll have a whole bunch of time to factor a bunch of things. So please find the Schoology quiz. I'm going to ask somebody to read problem 1 in just a second. Be there. Problem 1 isn't actually even factoring, but you got to be able to do stuff that is factored. You got to be able to do stuff with that. Owen, would you read me number 1? Avery, could you shut the door back there, please? It's getting a little hallway noise.
Y equals parentheses x plus 4 times parentheses minus.
Nice. What do they want? Oh, generally you just multiply it out then. Don't forget the y equals, otherwise you haven't got an equation. Ainsley, can you do these in your head kind of fast? What'd you get?
I got, x squared plus x minus 12.
Yep. Nice job. Don't forget the y equals in front though.
Yeah.
All right. And Vivian, what else do they ask for on this problem?
The general form of y equals parentheses 3x plus 4 times parentheses 2x minus 5.
Is that also in the same? Oh, I know what's going on. On problem 1, they have like 2 parts to it, but don't they ask for the answers first though?
No, it's just general form.
Just general form. Okay, good, good, good. Could you read me the equation one more time, Vivian?
Y equals parentheses 3x plus 4 times parentheses 2x minus 5.
-5? Okay, thanks. All right. James gets to multiply this one out.
Y equals 6x squared minus 7x minus 20.
6x squared. Minus 15 and plus 8 makes minus 7x minus 20. And I get it wrong. Why? Y equals. All right. I think you're going. I think you're good. Remember that when they do ask for the answers, put them in points like 5, 0 or whatever. Make sure you don't ever give a single number answer. All right. Work time.